You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets on Media Network.
All right, you're on The Arms Room with Glenn.
And John.
How we doing, John?
I am good, man. I had a pretty good weekend.
Tell me about it.
Well, let's see. Saturday, I was out at Cowtown hanging out for the opening of their long-range shooting club. And made some new friends and just kind of hung out. And then Sunday was my wife's birthday, so we just kind of hung out at the house all day.
Oh, well, happy birthday to Mrs. John.
Yeah. It was a good, relaxing weekend for the most part.
If I'd have known that when I saw her on Saturday, I would have said something.
That's all right. I forgot to tell you.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up.
You're a horrible friend anyway.
I appreciate that. My weekend was pretty good. Whoa, that was loud. My weekend was pretty good. Still loud, by the way.
Just a lot.
A little bit. Just a ton. So
Stop being a bitch.
So Friday we had a little training class.
Oh yeah.
And by little I mean little.
Yeah, it was a little
training class. And Saturday had a fun day. You guys went to Cowtown, and I went over to hang out with some fighter pilots and teach a class to them. And that was a lot of fun. They had the greatest briefing room / office / hangout area I've ever seen any unit have.
Go Air Force.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Their kitchen was, a huge room.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. And their briefing room was really nice. And they had their own bar. And I'm not talking about like a bar on the wall with some drinks. They had an entire room that was a bar, a full bar with bar tables and all the cool bar decorations and tons of only the best booze, of course. It was really cool, man. Their room was awesome, and it was fun to hang out with them and teach them and work with them, and great guys.
Fantastic,
great guys, and yeah.
Go Air Force, by the way.
Yeah, I guess so, man.
If you want a super high standard of living, join the Air Force.
That is the truth, man. These guys weren't suffering. Let's put it that way.
No.
I was like, wait a minute, this is unusual to me. So a couple interesting things that we have to talk about. First of all, we got to talk about this pitch that we were talking about before the show that I thought was really, really cool. So I'm going to pull it up real quick because I thought it was awesome. I saw it this morning. And yeah, all right. So this Army vet, I'm trying to see if I don't think they gave his name or anything. Oh, excuse me, they do. Sergeant First Class Brian Keaton, retired, of course, who spent 3.5 years at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center recovering from a TBI and PTSD, decided that instead of merely tossing the ball, he'd make his first pitch a little more memorable at the Washington Nationals versus San Francisco's game. San Francisco Giants.
Right.
So he gets behind the pitcher's mound. Standard, I'm going to throw a grenade posture. Checks his left, checks his right, checks his six, comes up on a knee. After he low crawls, that's right. He does low crawl, and then takes a gangster knee and pulls pin, pops the spoon, throws that bad boy downrange, rolls into the catcher like a champ.
Nice,
good grenade throw overall.
I have to watch the video now.
It was good. I'm going to post it on the Arms Room page later, on the Arms Room Facebook page. It was a pretty cool video, just because you could tell that's the kind of dude you want to hang out with. That guy's got a good sense of humor about all the nonsense that's happened to him and some of the stuff he's been through, the things he's accomplished in his life, and just kind of has a good sense of humor about things. So very cool. Very cool. I'll post that up later on the Arms Room Facebook page. Also, another cool thing happening. Got to get your guys' input about this. American Sniper, the movie. Bradley Cooper playing Chris Kyle, which I got to say, I like Bradley Cooper as an actor. He does a pretty good job. I think they should have picked someone a little taller. Chris Kyle was a big man.
Well, they can do film angle tricks with that. That's why Tom Cruise always looks 6 foot in his movies.
That's true.
He's like 5'1" or whatever.
Super short. So what do you guys think? Is it going to be a winner or a loser?
I think it'll do very well. It just looks like a good action movie, which is what most people are going to take it as, unfortunately, because they don't understand.
You don't really even know who Chris Kyle was.
Yeah, exactly. But I saw one of the previews for it.
I think there's only one so far.
I think there's two.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, because they generally do like a long one and then like a shorter one.
Yeah.
But I think it's gonna be a great movie. I'm gonna go see it.
Well, of course I'm gonna go see it
on Christmas Day when it comes out. Is when I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah, is it Christmas Day?
Yeah, it comes out December 25th.
Sure does, December 25th. Well, I'll go see that.
Really?
I will be there that night to watch that movie.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Hanukkah.
I like the fact
Feliz Navidad.
he was
Sorry.
he was able to talk with Chris Kyle on the phone like one time before before Chris and Chad got murdered, but that was kind of cool. You know, at least he had some kind of contact with him.
Yeah.
He sat down, he's talked with the family. I feel like this is going to maybe be like a Lone Survivor thing where Lone Survivor didn't follow the real story spot on.
Mm-mm.
And I think the thing that we have to take away from these movies, neither did Black Hawk Down, neither did whatever other war movie you've seen.
It's Hollywood, man.
Yes.
You can't go to the true story because there are too many boring parts in the real story.
You have an hour and a half to 2 hours to, entertain.
Span a lifetime.
To entertain people. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, you're looking at, Chris Kyle's incredible, military history and even personal life and what he accomplished even at home. And there's all this stuff that they have to cover in an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think that people really need to take away from these kind of movies is, one, like John said, they are good action movies. We're going to go see some cool military action. It's going to be based loosely on someone's real exploits. But look, if the family signs off on it, then that's good enough for me.
Yep.
If it represents, is spot on, absolute verbatim thing? No, probably not. But if it represents what Chris Kyle stood for and did and accomplished and what he did in his personal life and the great man that he was, then I'm okay with that.
No, I agree. I think a lot of these movies, like you brought up Lone Survivor, I've read the book, I own the movie, and it only covers a fraction of what the book actually, a specific, the movie only covers a specific incident, really.
Yeah.
And I predict that it'll be roughly the same thing. I think they'll take parts of Chris's life, and kind of people get bits and pieces of it. But I'm going to speculate and say that I'm willing to bet that a lot of the movie is going to be based on him being what they called the Devil of Ramadi, in his time in the military and what he did, and how deadly it was there.
Yeah, because they can't show all 160 of his kills. They can't show all of his deployments.
No.
They can't show his entire life.
No.
They've got to kind of sum it up, as I said, in 90 to 120 minutes or however much time.
I like you said, as long as the family signs off on it, do I think Bradley Cooper will do a good job? Yeah, I mean
he's a good actor. He'll do
the trailer I saw on it, the hair in the back of my neck stood out. I was like, oh man, okay, yeah. This is.
Is that the rooftop?
Yeah.
With the mom and
With
the
the
kid.
kid.
Yeah, with the mom and the kid. Yeah.
You're like, oh man.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It'll be good.
we'll see what happens. It'll be good. I don't know if I'll be there Christmas night, but
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Might
why
as
not?
well.
I'll take my oldest son. He can go.
Yeah.
It'll be fun times.
yeah.
All right. So on today's show, we're mixing things up a little bit. For anyone who actually looked at our calendar. All right. Not everyone follows our calendar, So
Well,
for anyone who's looking at our calendar, you'll notice that today we were going to be talking about something that is no longer we're talking about, and that our announcement for the show stated something entirely different than our calendar. And so today we're going to be talking with a guy named John Johnston from Ballistic Radio. Ballistic Radio is another podcast just like ours, a little bit bigger, a little bit better reach than what we've got, but a really cool guy. I've read a lot of his articles, pretty incredible stuff that he's written. There was his first article. I had no idea who this guy even was. I had never heard of Ballistic Radio or John Johnston or anything like that until a friend of mine posted up this article and I read it. And the name of the article that's going to be posted on the Arms Room Facebook page here in about, 10 minutes is called The Rise of the Sentinel Event. And we're going to call John here in just a minute so that he can talk to us more about this article. And pretty pretty awesome what he talks about in regards to how people train and how people set themselves up for success and or failure. And it's a lot about what we've talked on the show before, about the myth of the average engagement, about focusing too much on gear, about focusing too much on one particular way of doing things, or focusing on only building one skill set. And basically what the concept of the Rise of the Sentinel event, or a Sentinel event, is something that is outside the norm. It's a statistical outlier. It's well outside of what a normal engagement or a normal situation would be. And we're going to let John tell us more about that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to give him a call. And I'm going to I did not give Adam this number beforehand. I'm sorry, Adam. I'm going to email it to you right now. Is that better for you? Text it to you? Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, while I'm doing this, texting Adam on the show, even though we're sitting across the room from each other, which makes me feel
welcome to 2014.
A little stupid doing this, but
as I was driving in this morning, I saw a carload of people, the driver, and all three passengers, all on their cell phones, just texting away, looking at things.
They were all talking to each other. Yeah. They probably were.
Probably.
Hey, did you just get my text? I just sent it to you. Oh yeah, I just got it. Oh, that's such a funny joke.
Did you get my text? I said turn left.
Yeah.
Oh
crap! I didn't want to startle you, so I didn't say it out loud. Oh well, thanks. Thanks for that.
So I like the cover photo for the Rise of the Sentinel event article. The caption on it is amazing. I have a beard, tattoos, and a carbine. That means you should listen to what I have to say, right? I love that. It's
the
amazing,
truth, man. It's the truth. I think I lose. Honestly, I think when our students show up to our classes, I think I lose some credibility because I have the beard, right? But I'm short and I have no tattoos,
right?
And they're like, "What?"
And you make me wear pants so no one can see my tattoos. By that, I mean,
so you're saying
if I wear shorts
and you have ugly legs, that's why it makes you. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, yeah, I didn't get
easy there, buddy. Easy. I've seen you in shorts, pal.
Hey,
ouch.
You're like a giant hairless ape.
Ooh,
whoa!
You don't have to take.
I'm sorry, that was mean.
Wow,
I apologize.
Yeah.
No, don't hit me.
And we're just gonna mute his mic.
All right, fantastic.
Show just got better.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm just gonna go home. I'm gonna take my ball and go home, guys.
Take my ball and go home. Now we definitely see, this trend in the training world of preconceived notions, You have
to have beards.
Yeah, you got to have a beard. You got to have tattoos. You got to. And here's the thing. And, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Damn it. I was bearding before bearding was cool. Okay. I've always
the
had
fact
one.
that there's a term for having a beard disturbs me.
It does. When I grew up, everyone just, I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of guys.
Grown men had beards in the wintertime.
Beards, mustaches, whatever. That's what I have, man. I've always grown, facial hair.
We should do a show
other
about
than for
beards.
the time I was not allowed to grow facial hair. Right. Outside of that, I've pretty much always had.
We should do an entire show about beards.
I don't think so, actually. No, I'm pretty much wrap it up. We pretty much wrap up that show.
Okay. Well,
pretty much wrap up that show. Right now, we'll say, if you can grow a beard, you ought to try it out. If you can't grow a beard,
stop trying.
Stop trying because it looks terrible.
I kind of got like a spot beard.
Sorry, Mason. I wasn't looking at you when that was. I looked over here in the corner. I was not specifically looking at you.
I think we should let everybody know that we got a new guy.
Oh yeah, we should.
Well, and they just saw They just saw him hobbling around the
table.
table.
If you saw the little hobbit walking around the table,
they saw that little guy.
That
is not my son. Contrary to popular belief,
although he could be.
That's how he could. He almost. Mason is our new board operator, being trained by the master Jedi board operator over there. Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, there you go. Did you forget his name?
No, I was just waiting for his reaction because I saw it building.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then it was kind of anticlimactic. But
yeah, a little bit.
But anyways, he's training Mason to be our new board operator. So at some point in the future, we'll be sad. Adam won't always be on the show with us, but we will have Mason to poke fun at. One way or another, whoever's not on screen gets made fun of.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and Mason's single, ladies, all just like Adam.
Oh,
yeah.
He's calling.
He's calling. Go for it. Let's have him on. I thought you were calling him.
Nope.
Fail, Adam. Hey, John, you there? Technical difficulties there.
We'll try. We'll call him back.
Adam, call him back.
No, he's on.
You there, John?
Can you hear us now?
You're failing me, Adam.
Let's give him a call back here.
All right, call him back. Give me Christmas. And this is why. And you're training Mason. Great. Whatever he says, Mason, do the opposite. That's what I think you should do. All right, here we go. It's ringing.
I feel like we're doing a prank call.
Well, I bet someone's getting fired.
Oh yeah, man. We are
pretty much.
We are throwing stuff at people in here. It's unbelievable. Out of control.
I was kind of listening in the beginning a little bit, and I'm like, well, I haven't gotten a phone call yet, so there's some sort of issue. I'll try and fix it. Anyway.
Yeah, well, we had to do the pass the phone number. I forgot to give the number to our board operator beforehand. So then I tried to text it to him, and we tried to write it. Anyways, it was a disaster. So
that's all right. That's all right. I appreciate you not just blurting it out over the airwaves because, you know, as much as I want to get like phone calls from the tactical crowd, you know.
Yeah, I wasn't going to be like, Adam, here's his number. All right. So how you doing, John?
Not bad. Not bad at all. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll try not to say anything too asinine. No, I can't make any promises.
That's
FYI.
That's all right, man. Clearly, you haven't listened to too many of our other shows.
Well, you know, I'm kind of busy trying to, you know, figure out what I'm going to do on my show, and oddly enough, I try not to listen to anyone else's show just so I don't rip off any ideas.
Oh.
Or at least if I do rip off any ideas, I do it on accident, not on purpose.
Nice.
You know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get started on this whole Sentinel event thing because, you know, I had never really heard of Ballistic Radio before. A friend of mine had posted up this article that you had written, The Rise of the Sentinel event, and posted up on Facebook. I read it, and there's not a lot of articles that I read, magazine articles or, you know, online articles about training and guns or whatever, that typically I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool. That's shocking. You know, it's like, oh, look, someone's regurgitating the same crap I've been reading for years.
Yeah.
But your article was different, man. It was very, very different. So I want to know how and kind of where this whole idea hit you.
Well, I mean, I host a radio show, Ballistic Radio. It's pretty plugged myself. I hope you don't mind. But no, I get to talk to a lot of the bigger names in the industry as far as the self-defense instructors or, you know, dudes that go and shoot bad guys in the face for a living or whatever, just regular dudes that have had to, you know, rise and adapt to some sort of really negative situation. But as I'm talking to all these people, and specifically Claude Warner, who is an amazing instructor, Claude has always operated under the kind of assumption that, and it you know, his numbers bear this out, but if most of the time, if you're armed, no matter what sort of gun you are armed with, and no matter what kind of training you've had, in 99.9% of any situation, that's really what the deciding factor is whether or not you've chosen to arm yourself.
Right.
Which is fine. And that's not something that, you know, we as an industry like to talk about that much because as someone that's very involved, at least in the background on the instruction side of things, you know, what that sounds like being uninitiated is, well, you don't need training. And that's not what I'm trying to say at all. That's certainly not what Claude's trying to say. But, you know, the fact of the matter is that for the most part, you have a gun, you're cool, except when it's not. When that's not enough is when we really start to look at what kind of training someone's had, what kind of equipment they're selecting. And it occurred to me as I'm trying to discuss these things with individuals, it's really hard to talk about something there's not a word for it.
Right.
You know, you can try and get a concept across and people sort of know what you're talking about, but, you know, I'm discussing these situations and, you know, without cursing on air or whatever, you know, you can describe them as like a cluster or, you know, whatever essay that you want, or, you know, just a mess or a really weird situation, but that doesn't help us out. So I was thinking about this and I came up with a term that I actually lifted off of the medical community that gets used a lot on the side of the medical communities, specifically when they're being taught, the sentinel event, which is for them when you've potentially done something that can kill a patient.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm dumbing down the definition. There's a lot more to it than that, but that was what I took away from it, was you've made a decision that without immediate, input is potentially harmful for a person. So what I did was I took that term, and like most of my good ideas, I stole it and applied it to this. And my definition of what we're talking about is a sentinel event is any critical incident that depends on the decisions you've made beforehand, either equipment selection or training, more than usual. It's not just your arms. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what kind of tactics do you utilize, what kind of decisions have you made before and during, what kind of equipment you have on you. Really good example would be, how often do you hear about someone that shoots someone on accident inside their house that's a family member? I mean, that happens pretty regularly, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
We've had several instances of it right here in Arizona in the last decade. In fact, two of the most recent ones involve law enforcement officers shooting their own children.
Right. And the thing that when you start digging into those, and it's never in the initial report, but I kind of like looking further into this, and I'm very lucky in that I get to talk to a lot of different agencies. And I generally, if I want to talk to a specific agency, I know someone that knows someone.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the things like that are, well, they didn't have a flashlight. So what you've got is this incident that is completely avoidable, has very negative, a negative outcome that could have been completely avoided just by, okay, have a weapon mounted light or have a flashlight, identify your target, which I know seems silly to kind of break it down into something as simple as, well, they didn't have a flashlight and that makes the sentinel event, but it's the truth, and there's all sorts of other things that occur that are along the vein. But the thing that I noticed when I was starting to try and talk to people about this before I wrote the article is it resonated with a lot of people, and then with some other people, specifically in the naval special warfare community. They're like, "What are you talking about?" But I can talk about that at the end of the show if you want.
Yeah.
But it's interesting just because you can take all sorts of different events. I don't know if you know who Paul Gardner is. He was a Marine that was paralyzed.
Yeah, we've actually we've hosted or posted, I should say, some of his articles on our blogs, and then spoken with him in the past. We definitely know who he is, and you're.
Oh yeah.
I know where you're going. His story is a perfect example of where in his case it was more of like just kind of bad TTPs. I mean, just bad training in general.
Yeah.
But at that time, did we think that was bad training?
No. Well, and that's it. And that's the other thing too, that kind of, the sentinel event term, I wanted to be able to discuss a concept that was difficult to discuss because there wasn't a term for it. But the other thing that I sort of wanted to get people thinking about, just by hopefully shifting our culture a little bit, was the failures in our community as well. Getting people aware of their existence so that instead of everyone assuming when they first get started in this before they get deeper into it, that I've got a gun, I'm fine. It's that magic talisman. And, that's not the case when you actually start to examine these situations that occur. It's always interesting to me just because you've got people that are at least aware enough to assume that, hey, something bad could happen to where I might need a firearm.
Mm-hmm.
So they've made that logical connection. But then when they start about there's something bad that could happen, they have very, very optimistic scenarios that they're envisioning, it's kind of funny. You talk to people and it's like the guys that carry 5-shot J-frames,
right?
And that's all they carry. They don't have a reload. They don't have anything. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do, because honestly, I don't have to live with their personal choices, and I'm not the one that is aware of their personal circumstances. But the people that do that I know who are professionals inside of the industry are very aware of the shortcomings of the platform. You know, they know what kind of situation they're prepared to deal with, what they're not prepared to deal with.
Right.
Whereas you get the uninformed or the misinformed, which is even worse, and they're like, well, I've got a gun and I'm good. And it's like, well, yeah, a lot of the times you would be, but what if you're not? And it's that, but what if you're not, that seems to be the disconnect for people, you know?
Well, I'll tell you, over the years, you know, training is what, you know, when we host this show, but what we do for a living is we train. And so having done that for, you know, many years now, it's interesting because over the years, I've always tried to, you know, we call a lot of different things, a non-standard response or the myth of the average engagement. We even talked about it on our show before. You know, we've written about it. We tell our students about it all the time. Like, look, yeah, most of the time, let's say carrying a 5-shot J-frame. All right, that's a perfect example because we use that same example in our classes. Like, look, the guy who carries a 5-shot, you know, J-frame, is he ready for 95% of the stuff that's going to happen to him? Yeah, because most of the time, just the mere presence of a firearm or the mere threat of force is probably going to be enough. You know, most, you know, thugs, bad guys, whatever you want to call them, aren't interested in some kind of test of skills. They're just interested in getting paid, not getting shot or getting in a fight or anything like that. You know, okay, yeah, you're going to present this force, and that's going to be enough. But what about when it's not enough? What about when you shoot the guy 5 times and it doesn't stop him? Or you shoot 5 times and maybe you miss a couple because, you know, that kind of, it may not happen to you on the range, but in the real world, you kind of freaking miss a little. What if there's 2 guys? What if you're up against body armor? I mean, there's like all these other things.
Right. And it's funny, too, because I can actually cite a real-world example of a gunfight being lost because of a 5-shot J-frame.
Dude, Miami-Dade, man.
Well, no, not even that. I mean, because they technically won that gunfight.
Yes, they did.
Are you familiar with Justin Schmieders at all? He posted on ARFCOM as Blitz 308. I had him on the show, but Justin was, at the time, is like the perfect average concealed carry dude.
Okay.
He likes guns. He goes and practices maybe once a month. He goes to the range, shoots a silhouette, calls it good, carries a gun 60-70% of the time.
Okay.
You know, that's honestly, I think, very representative of the average carry population.
Sure.
So anyway, this guy comes. Justin was at an event with some friends. They had like a weekly get together out in front of this guy's office. Guy was a lawyer.
Oh, is this to do with the 1911 who couldn't grip it afterward? Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I know the story. But go ahead and keep telling it for our listeners.
No. So anyway, this guy comes up to rob him pretty much. And, there's all sorts of things that occur in this, and this would actually be another example of the sentinel event, at least by my definition of it.
No, I totally agree. Anyway, this is a perfect example.
But Justin ends up getting transported inside of the building with the rest of the group of his friends and gets in a shootout with this guy. The guy is armed with a shot Smith & Wesson J-frame loaded with 135 grain plus P gold dot hollow point. Justin gets shot 4 times, twice in the hand. So one in either hand. Gets grazed across the stomach, and then one that hits him in the upper thoracic region, I want to say. Came very, very close to killing him, actually.
It was like right in his, like right around his collarbone area, wasn't it?
Right. But it almost severed one of the arteries. You know, lucky he didn't die. The reason why that gunfight stopped, though, was because the bad guy ran out of ammo. Justin was shooting back at him. He had a shooter-induced malfunction. He scored 1 periphery hit. Actually made a really good center mass shot, but once again, due to training, the guy was bladed towards him, so he was shooting at center mass. What ended up happening is a bullet passed through the guy's clothes. He was wearing like a baggy hoodie. So center mass, when he was bladed towards him, was not where he was, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And you can like visualize that. But it's a really good example of all sorts of things as far as, you know, for instance, you cite, well, the bad guy usually when presented with deadly force leaves. In this case, that's not what happened. The guy was like, well, I'm going to kill you too. Was pretty much how that went. And once again, the only reason Justin's alive is because the other guy ran out of ammo.
The ammo is another part of this Sentinel event, though, because traditionally people say, hey, bad guy's only going to be using some crap ball, cheap ammo. In this case, the guy had some pretty decent jacketed hollow point stuff.
Yeah, what's funny about that, I might have to double check with Justin. I might send him a text after this just to make sure I'm saying it right. But I want to say every single one of those rounds failed to expand.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly, and thank God, because one of them probably would have killed him if it had. But it's people get hung up on like the magic bullet thing. I'm I'm an ammo snob. I actually really have an interest in thermal ballistics and bug Gary Roberts about it and blah blah blah. But it really comes down to, and this is tangential to what we were initially talking about, but shooting people comes down to where you place the bullets, which is pretty common knowledge for our circle, but not so much when, once again, people get into the, I don't want to call hobby, lifestyle maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and there's a couple other interesting kind of Sentinel event type things that happen there, because one, as you mentioned, the guy didn't leave when Deadly Force was presented. Two, I think, he had a traditional bad guy, concealable, low profile gun, but it was loaded with ammunition that luckily didn't expand, but loaded with ammunition that we typically wouldn't expect somebody to use. And quite frankly, was able to achieve a pretty damn high hit ratio based on, most people go, oh, well, it's just a thugger. He's going to hold it sideways. He's going to, fist pump it or whatever. And he's probably not going to hit anything. Yeah. In this case, the guy scored 4 to 5 hits.
Yeah.
I mean, he hit, 4 times out of 5. That's a pretty good hit ratio for anybody in a stressful situation. There's also the fact where, I know a lot of 1911 shooters and, aficionados who are like, well, yeah, the grip safety is no big deal. And one of my complaints against guns like that, or the Springfield XD or any of those things, is that, hey, you got this grip safety and you're in certain unconventional shooting positions, or maybe you're injured, or maybe you're just a little weak or whatever. And you can basically have a shooter-induced malfunction just because you can't grip tight enough. They go, oh, well, that's so far-fetched. Well, it wasn't far-fetched here.
No, not at all.
Because it happened in this story.
It's funny you mentioned grip safeties, because I tend to pin them on guns that have them.
I agree.
I kind of tell everybody whenever they ask me, if you're relying on a mechanical safety to prevent you from having an accident, you're going to have an accident.
Right. Right.
It's going to happen. Oddly enough, I know a couple of different people that have accidentally shot themselves, through training or whatever. Mm-hmm. And every single instance of that was with a 1911,
right?
Which is anecdotal and coincidental as well, but
sure,
it's kind of funny. That's also tangential to all this, but just in that one instance, you see all sorts of different things that affected the outcome of that, either positively or negatively.
Hmm.
The other argument you can make is that when the bad guy was making the initial approach on Justin and his friends, I mean, he had the gun out from a distance, and Justin said to me when I talked to him, he's like, I thought one of my friends was playing a practical joke, and that's why he didn't react. So he was behind the curve on that. Once again, it's hard to Monday morning quarterback stuff like that, but
sure.
As he said to me, if I had a little bit more training or whatever, I probably just would have shot that guy before it ever got, close range.
I remember when I first saw that story, I read it on AR15.com. That's where I read it. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading some great pictures on there. If you want to go check it out, our listeners want to go check it out, you can go to AR15.com. I don't remember what sub form it's in, but if your search foo is strong, you'll find it pretty quickly. And the interesting, because it's huge, it's like many, many pages now. The interesting thing that I remember is he wrote like these lessons learned. There's like pictures of his hand all shot and everything. And the very first lesson he said is actually something I've told students in the past. Like the very first thing this guy said after he survived the unthinkable, the thing that we all train for and likely won't ever have to encounter. After he survived this thing, the first thing he said was, first lesson learned, I should have gotten more training. I thought I was ready and I wasn't.
Yep. Well, and here's a really good example of this. One of my really good friends is in the Naval Special Warfare community, active SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
10 full deployments now, countless direct actions. You know, he was one of the senior NCOs of Chris Kyle, you know, and the events in American Sniper, he was there for that. He's been in something like 200 plus gunfights at this point, you know, and what's he do on the weekends when he's got free time? He goes and trains, you know, and that to me is like the biggest indicator of, well, hey, maybe this is something we should be doing. You know, if this guy who arguably has, you know, he's in a very, very limited club of individuals, you know, and still sees the value in it, then it's something that certainly all of us could be doing. Now, you could also make the counter argument that his job entails going out and getting in gunfights, but still, you know, it depends on your resources and your time. But, you know, the people that just go and take the basic and kill carry class and then call it good, I understand why they do that, but I would really like to see a shift in the community and the culture to encourage people away from that, you know?
Well, I'll tell you what's even more difficult here in our state, in Arizona, is, and I'm starting to see this trend in other states as well, and it's actually disturbing. And the trend is this: back in 2011, all standards basically for the Arizona State CCW program were removed, and so essentially, as an Arizona certified CCW instructor, I can literally, because I don't use, you can use your NRA certifications to teach CCW, or if you're certified by the Department of Public Safety, you can teach CCW.
Right.
We're both, as an NRA certified instructor, I have to teach an actual NRA course, which involves whatever it involves. But I can even teach like their 2-hour first shots course or whatever it's called. Yeah. It doesn't even have anything to do with actually shooting or CCW. As a DPS instructor, I can literally teach anything. I can take someone out to lunch and sign their CCW application.
Right.
And so the difficult thing with that is then people, you know, when you mentioned like, well, people get their CCW permit, now they have their CCW permit and they think, oh, now I'm empowered somehow. And you're like, man, you know, if you got it from in a state like Arizona, holy cow, it's quite possible you didn't go through any kind of training, or that you didn't even fire anything, or that you don't know the laws, or that you don't understand the standard, you know, the shouldn't even say standard engagement, the non-standard type situations you might actually find yourself. They don't understand verbally dealing with somebody. You know, everyone thinks, hey, I carry a gun, problems are going to be solved by the gun, but they don't have a hand-to-hand game. They don't understand verbal judo. You know, they don't get all those aspects of what we're really more likely to use than the gun.
Right. Well, it's interesting too, and that's we could probably do an entire show about whether or not there should be training standards.
Right.
You know, I will say this: I'm not a fan of mandated training standards, especially when the people mandating them are, you know, not qualified to be doing it. And the other thing too is that, you know, no one would agree on any standards. I don't think that there should be a test to exercise a constitutional right. But I would hope, and I know this is not the case, but I would hope that if you've made the decision to arm yourself and be in public, you would take that seriously enough to do so without endangering other people potentially. But you know, as much as like this is a topic of conversation for you or I, where we both go, well, man, it'd be nice if people got more training. Kind of going back to, you know, one of the original impetuses behind this was a lot of times they don't. I mean, it's hard to argue with that, but a lot of times it could be a dude with a high point that's not done anything at all, you know, has never even fired a gun, and they do just fine. Now, the thing about that, and here's where the breakdown occurs at least, is that a lot of people mistake success for having done it right, which is not, you know, is not the same thing at all.
Right.
I had an interesting conversation with a trainer that does a lot of stuff with police departments. We were talking about traffic stops, and you know, you figure the average cop after 10 years has done thousands of traffic stops.
Right.
Well, the thing about that is, okay, so they've done 10,000 traffic stops and they've never been killed, so that means they're doing it right. Well, no, it doesn't. It just means they haven't been killed.
Right.
You know, and that's something else that people get confused, is mistaking prior success for proper courses of action, if that makes sense.
It does. And I want to know more about that concept and how it relates to the Sentinel event. We got to take a quick break. We got to take a break for about 4 or 5 minutes and just stay on the phone with us. 3 minutes, I guess. 3 minutes. We're going to take a break. Stay on the phone with us, and we'll get right back to you. You cool with that?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we're talking with John from Ballistic Radio, and you are listening to The Arms Room. We'll be right back.
Breaker 19. How about that bandit? You got some ears on, son?
Have you ever wanted to be a truck driver? If so, pay attention. If not, pay attention anyway. Southwest Truck Driver Training offers everything you need to get started. You can get hired before you begin training. They've got GI Bill approved training facilities, day, night, or weekend programs to fit your busy schedule. And if you have any questions, no sweat. They've got veteran supportive campuses with veterans on staff to serve you. And on top of that, they have lifetime job placement assistance. Put the pedal to the metal. Call Southwest Truck Driver Training today.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
You're listening to The Arms Room on the Vets On Media Network.
All right, you're back on The Arms Room. John, you still with us?
I am.
Awesome. So we've got John Johnston from Ballistic Radio on with us today, talking about his article, The Rise of the Sentinel Event, which we posted to the Arms Room Facebook page, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes ago or so. So it's up there. And the Vets On Media page. I guess Adam just linked it over there too. So
I appreciate the extra traffic too, by the way. So,
yeah, man, it's a great article. I've really liked the way that you've been able to put a name to the stuff that we've been talking about all these years, trying to tell people about, hey, there's non-standard response, there's the myth of the average engagement, there's this, we try to use these terms, but to actually put a name to them. I mean, since I read the article, I've kind of slipped it into a couple training classes already of like, so, we call these Sentinel events, and here's kind of what that means. And then throughout the rest of the class, I can just kind of refer to it as that one thing and people understand it. So yeah, already, it's a term that we've started using because it makes sense. It actually allows us to define something. So I really like that. But I want to get back to what we were talking about before the break, which was you were telling me about your law enforcement conversation about or your talk with the law enforcement trainer who just basically said, look, just because a guy's done 10,000 traffic stops doesn't mean he's doing them right. It just means he hasn't failed yet. Yeah.
Well, there's a quote, and I can't remember who it's attributed to, but there's people that are alive today just because someone else did not decide to kill them.
Right.
Which is essentially what we're talking about. Oddly enough, where I ended up parking to take this phone call, I'm watching a traffic stop occur right now. And I didn't stage this, but it's interesting. I just watched this guy do this, and I'd give him maybe like 2.5 stars out of 5. So, but, you know, and I don't know anything about this officer, and I'm not going to name any agency or anything like that, but, you know, just watching how he did this, it wasn't what I would call safe practices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good example, though. For all I know, this is a 15 or 20-year veteran of the force. He's done 20,000 of these things, and in his mind, he's an expert.
Right.
You know, because, well, I've done this so many times. Well, okay. And there's all sorts of different things inside of the self-defense conversation that applies to. You know, it's like, it's kind of like the whole carrying a gun argument. There's a lot of people that look at that as silly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's silly to carry a gun every day. I've never needed one. Well, okay. You know, you don't need your seatbelt until you're in a car accident. You don't need a fire extinguisher until something's on fire.
Right.
But the funny thing to me is, even if you get inside the group of people that carry a gun every day, or at least carry a gun sometimes, then you have the people that carry a gun sometimes making fun of the people that carry a gun every day. And then you've got the people that carry a gun every day but don't carry a reload, you know, making fun of the people that carry a reload. There's always a certain level that people are comfortable with, and then once you go past that, you're paranoid. You know, and it's interesting to me, you know, to see where that personal line lies. You know, for instance, I carry a medical kit with a tourniquet in it every day. Have I ever needed a tourniquet? No. You know, do I expect to need a tourniquet today? No. But it's something I can carry that doesn't take up that much room, doesn't inconvenience me at all, so I carry it.
Right.
I tell people that, and they're like, well, that's silly. Why would you need that? You know, are you going to a war zone or something like that? I was like, no. You know, but how many car accidents have you come across?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many bad car accidents have you come across?
Or say you find yourself in one of these absolutely far-fetched sentinel events, such as maybe a movie theater or near a public school or at a mall or any of these other crazy times where we've seen the exact thing we're talking about, this out of the ordinary situation that we didn't plan for, we didn't anticipate, we didn't expect. You know, it was a great example just from like the medical side of things, because that's a big part of our training that we do is emergency medical stuff. And so from that perspective, you know, when we had that Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords get shot several years back, there were two responding law enforcement agencies, and one law enforcement agency had just been through a really, really basic level kind of CLS or combat lifesaver type program. They've been issued some really, really basic IFAC, you know, first aid kits. Yeah. The other agency had never had any kind of thing. And so one agency basically sat on their hands while people bled out and died. And the other agency is accredited to saving at least 3 lives.
Right.
Now, to those 3 people that they were carrying kits.
Yeah, well, and that's it. The thing that, you know, when we talk about these events, and this was kind of my idea behind giving it an long term. We talk about these events, and just by the way we discuss them, we make it seem like they don't happen that often. You know, the 1986 FBI Miami gunfight, the North Hollywood shootout, you know, the mall shooting in Nairobi. All these events get their specific name. The Breslin massacre. There's all sorts of, you know, the Newhall massacre.
Right.
But by giving them specific names, what we do is we've singled them out as things that don't occur that often. But when you look at them, even though the details are different, the overall feel of the event is the same. So that was, you know, essentially what I was trying to do was make it understandable to people that they were more common than it looks like at first glance. You know, and I think that when we make people a little bit more aware of the things that can go wrong outside of normal things going wrong, that can only help, and it can only improve our culture. You know, and by culture I'm saying the gun community. It can only improve us as a whole, you know. So.
Now, when we're looking at these events, one of the things that I've kind of started to think about, you know, as I've read the article and thought about it more, and you know, we were going to have you as a guest on the show and everything, I started thinking about, okay, we often teach in our classes, like so many other instructors do, you have to start to visualize realistic scenarios you're going to find yourself in. Should I go take a training class where I'm learning how to breach and clear with a team? Not really. That doesn't apply to my life, right? That's fun. It's an adventure. It's exciting, whatever. I get to go play G.I. Joe or something, but it doesn't really apply to my life now as a regular dude. So what kind of situations am I going to find myself in? All right, well, I'm probably going to find myself in close quarters engagements. I'm going to find myself in my home. I'm going to not kicking in a door and breaching and clearing a building, but potentially defending my own home and maybe having to move room to room to protect my children or something. I'm going to be finding myself in close quarters engagement. So I need to seek out that kind of training. I'm going to be finding myself in average everyday situations. So I need to start learning how to talk to people. And if I'm super shy and I don't want to be rude or anything like that, like I need to take training that's going to get me out of that shell. And so as we start to think about like these Sentinel events, I think it's another way that we can kind of give these things a name, like start to think about your Sentinel events. What are the things that are going to happen to you? They're going to be out of the ordinary, because as you said, there's a 99% chance that all, four of us in this studio and you on the phone, that none of us, even though I know we all carry medical supplies in one way, shape, or form, are going to have to use any of them today. There's a huge chance that we're not going to have to do that. So if we just live on that kind of, whatever lifestyle of averages, and we'll probably be right most of the time, or maybe all the time, we may go through our whole life and never have to employ it. And then we'll get to the end of our life and say, see, I told you I didn't have to carry a tourniquet. I never needed one.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. It's not the odds; it's the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm once again stealing that quote from someone as well, and I'm sure I'll remember it as soon as we're off the air. But it's making people understand that you only get one chance to mess up.
Right.
I think is important. Getting people to understand that your one chance to mess up may not directly affect you, it could affect other people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sheriff's deputy in South Carolina, out on the East Coast that, he recently shot his daughter 2 a.m. in the morning, thought she was in her bedroom. She had snuck out, was sneaking back in, plugged her when she was coming in from the garage. Then when he realized what he had done, he gets her in the car, tries to drive her to the hospital, ends up wrecking the car and making himself a casualty as well. Now they both survived, but really good example. Once again, going back to it, my favorite one is have a light.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one thing I could make every single person do is have a white light to positively identify their target,
right,
in their home or around their property. That would be it. But and even the training we seek out, there's a place for going to the tactical fantasy band camp stuff, which is what I like to call it. And I've gone and done shoot house stuff with like Pat Rogers and Steve Fisher and
what
all
is
that.
Larry Vickers calls it entertainment, right?
Yeah. And honestly, when people start talking about that, they're talking about Magpul and Costa and Haley. And Costa's a friend of mine.
Sure.
It all depends on what you take away from what you're doing. If you understand that what you're doing is more for entertainment value, but you're learning to make decisions with a gun in your hand, and hopefully you're working on your fundamentals. I see value in all of it.
But where I'm looking at is, where should people focus? Like once you've taken, once you're really competent, you're really secure, you're really, okay, good, I'm training on my own, I've got my own regiment, I've got my own thing, I understand the fundamentals, I understand the basics, I get manipulation, movement, marksmanship, I got the right mindset, all that. Okay, now, like you said, now let's go see if we can apply these things under stress. Let's go shoot some competitions. Let's go take some door kicking classes. Now let's see if I can process information and make decisions and talk to people and do all that with a gun in my hand, and be able to go from, hey, we're just having a conversation, to I'm shooting you in the face, in a split second. That's where that stuff becomes applicable.
Really comes into play. Are you familiar with Craig Douglas?
We train with him 3-4 times a year.
Okay. Yeah, well, an ECQC.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one place for everybody to start,
absolutely,
ECQC would be it. I will tell you, and I've been training for a while, but the first ECQC evolution that I went through, where the guy took my gun from me, sat on top of my face,
Shot
and
you with it?
shot me in the crotch with my own gun. I thought to myself, I remember as those sim rounds were impacting, that A, I'm really glad I bought a cup, and B,
Right.
maybe I really need to rethink some of the things that I've been focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know how you make someone aware of how terrible actually is without them actually experiencing it firsthand.
That's a trick, though. I don't think you can. It's almost like, like you said, a cop could go through, let's say 20, should we use this example before? Let's reuse it. A cop could go through, let's say 20 years. He could do 10,000 traffic stops, never had a problem. He starts to fall into that routine. Maybe he gets a little complacent or something. All of a sudden, stop 10,001, someone produces a firearm on him. All right. How is that cop going to react? And even how is he going to be able to react? What is his training up to this point? What is his mindset up to this point? Is he going to survive that gunfight or not? And unfortunately, we see historically that a lot of guys don't survive those kinds of contacts. A lot of guys do, but a lot of them don't, just because that was a absolute 100% Sentinel event. They did not anticipate that. And, you know, we host ECQC every year for Craig, and we do, you know, that kind of stuff. So I love Craig. He's been a guest on our show before. We, you know, Cecil Birch, same thing. We bring him into our show. Those guys are good friends of ours, and I love their training mentality of failure. I mean, it's one of the greatest things that you can incorporate into your training, is understanding when what you're doing is not working. What do you do next?
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I was having a conversation with Kyle before, who is an amazing instructor. One of the things that I disagreed with him on, I used the word failure. He's like, well, I don't like to use that word. You know, and what it is the whole failure is not an option mindset.
Sure.
Which in a military context is awesome. Unfortunately, in a civilian context, failure is always an option. And in fact, you know, if you're not prepared properly, failure is the most likely option.
Right.
And I'm going to quote that later, because that one I did come up with on my own. But you know, I think that thing that instructors in general, I don't want to say they encourage students to fail to the point where it discourages them and they don't want to train anymore. But I think creating ambiguous training scenarios where failure is a likely outcome if you are not on your game, I think that would be a lot more helpful. And I think it's something that it gets left out. I mean, the other thing too is that, and shooters don't want to hear this, but the shooting portion of this is pretty simple.
Yep.
You know, there are very few circumstances I can think of where, you know, being really, really technically proficient was the difference between winning and losing. And that's not to say that those things don't exist, because they do. But once again, if we're looking at the most likely thing, if you can hit stuff out to 25 yards, you're probably okay.
Right.
You know, and it doesn't take much instruction to get someone to that point. And then where we need to concentrate efforts is, like you said, the verbal skills beforehand, the managing unknown contacts, the how do you recognize problems before they are inside of your personal space. You know, how do you get people prepared to, you know, deal with reactionary violence that they might have to perform against someone else? There's all these interesting little tidbits to this that no one ever thinks about when they're first getting into it, because they're indoctrinated when they first step into this that the gun is the answer. Once you have the gun, you're fine. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about, you know, the Sentinel event thing, was to sort of highlight all the situations where the gun wasn't the only answer, and sometimes it wasn't the answer at all. You know, just to get people thinking past, okay, I have a gun and I'm good. You know, I want them to take the next 2 or 3 steps beyond that. You know, it's kind of like an ACQC in-fight weapon access. When you see someone go through their first ground fight, and they're gun dudes, they go for the gun way before they need to, and they introduce the gun into a situation that ends up making it worse for them. And you can extrapolate that into a lot of different scenarios that are not ground sights, where you introduce the gun into the situation before it needs to be there, and you've made it worse.
Absolutely.
You know. So.
Well, we've got to we got to wrap things up.
Yep.
Man, I would love to sit here and talk with you about this for, all day. Yeah, we're like-minded guys. We could sit around and debate some of the finer points of these concepts, but I have to bring up something kind of funny. All right. Yeah. So I posted the Rise of the Sentinel event to the Arms Room Facebook page, and the preview pic that it selected is a close-up of your crotch with the words sight picture.
Yeah.
And so I can't help but remember two really particular things. One, everyone in ECQC becomes a dick shooter. Sooner or later, you're going to find that opportunity. And two, I did, before, having you on the show, watch your commentary on Chris Costa's whole crazy video, Easy Day or whatever, where he shoots the dude in the crotch. And so I just find this incredibly ironic that
it all comes back around to getting shot in the dick. It's funny how I probably could fix that to where if I crop that image differently, Facebook's proportions when they preview the link would not make it a close up on my crotch. But honestly, I get like a perverse pleasure knowing that whenever
everyone's looking at your crotch.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm obviously an egomaniac.
Plus, I just love how it says sight picture.
Yeah. In all seriousness, sight picture media is actually who took that photo.
Cool.
We were doing that for. I'm doing an endurance test on a Knight's Armament gun right now.
Oh, right on.
And they were taking photos for that, and I happened to lift it, and it was nice because I got to make a funny joke at our industry with the caption of the photo. I think I heard you guys talking about that.
Yeah, we did. We thought it was pretty funny too. I was joking about how everyone comes to our classes and they they're so excited because they hear good things about us. They show up and I have no tattoos, and how disappointing that must be.
It's got to be disappointing to people when they come and do stuff with me, and I've got the beard and the tattoos, and they're like, so which Delta Team Ranger 6 were like. I like Ben and Jerry's at the mall.
Right.
Right. But,
right. Well, hey, tell our listeners about how they can find Ballistic Radio and listen to some of your shows.
Yeah, Ballistic Radio is every Sunday night, 7 p.m. You can listen on iHeartRadio via 55 KRC. We're actually syndicated with Clear Channel, so we're in 6 cities now, I want to say.
Cool.
They're broadcast at various times. But the easiest way is just go to ballisticradio.com and you can download the shows after the fact. Or you can watch me make fun of people on our Facebook page. I think we just hit 137,000 users.
Awesome.
So you can watch the bits happen in real time. Facebook.com/Ballistic Radio.
Well, hey, I again, man, I really appreciate you coming on to the show, and really encourage our listeners to go check out ballisticradio.com. Check out the Arms Room Facebook page where we posted up the article that we've been talking about today, so that you can go and read it and understand a little bit more about what we're talking about. You cite some really particular real-world examples in there that I think are really important. And again, man, really appreciate you coming on to the show. It's been good talking with you.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime.
Right on. Well, have a good day, John, and don't get pulled over.
Yeah, I'll try not to.
All right, man.
I've done okay so far.
Good. All right, man. Take care.
Bye.
All right. So good times. John, obviously very squared away guy, really knows his stuff. Make sure you go and check out that article. It really is a really good article that talks very much about the stuff that we believe in and the stuff that we use in our own training. Next week, we're going to be doing, let's see, what is it? October the 13th. Holy cow. We're moving right along. Shotguns. We're going to be talking about shotguns. I'm going to bring some shotguns in, and we're going to be talking about different types of shotguns, shotgun selection, loads, patterns, how to blow off someone's arm with a shotgun, and some of the myths and misconceptions, like blowing off someone's arm with a shotgun.
They don't just cut them right in half, man.
Cut them right in half, man. Rack a shotgun, scare the hell out of someone. We're going to talk about different types of shotgun selection, home defense, hunting, things like that. And some of my recommendations probably going to surprise you a little bit on some of the things I'm going to talk about. So we're going to be talking about all about shotguns. This was a user requested or listener requested show, so I hope he's actually going to listen.
I hope so.
So it's going to be all about shotguns. Until then, stay aware, stay safe, train hard. You've been listening to The Arms Room.
Bright stars through the